woke up in the mood to sort of complain today. Now, besides Harry Potter, the one thing that I have followed really closely throughout my life, even including my dark ages, has been superheroes. I mean, primarily it was DC, but that seems to have sort of metaphorically gone down the toilet in recent years. Am I upset about it? Yes. What can I do about it? Not much really, besides buy whatever sets they do make. See, vote with your wallets here, which is something that I definitely didn't do with Marvel. Now, I missed out on a lot of good Marvel sets. However, the last few years, I feel like they've really been pumping out some bangers. I've been buying quite a lot, and there's some of my favorite sets and favorite minifigures in my collection. I love them so much. However, one particular type of set that Marvel continues to make over and over and over again, I don't particularly like all that much, and honestly, we seem to be getting too much of it that I think Marvel sort of has a bit of a problem. And that set type in particular is the good old Marvel mech. Now, Marvel seem to love producing these, which I mean, I sort of understand it. I mean, I imagine they're really good for kids to play with, which is why we have sort of a whole sub-theme of 3 mechs that seem to release every year and then suddenly appear in Costco in this weird box that's like not really rare, but like the packaging's sort of special, I guess. And then alongside that, you seem to always get at least one, if not more, in sort of like the regular waves throughout the year. So specifically in 2021, there was a lot. It sort of felt like we were drowning in mechs at one point. And this I find particularly interesting because I feel like whenever people talk about upcoming Marvel sets or things that they want to see, often mechs aren't really brought up. I feel like they're one of the least type of talked about sets, least desired, besides maybe like kids that are like less than 12. If you're 12 and you enjoy mechs, please let me know. But that's sort of what I assume. Now, I am very aware that I am not a child anymore, and usually the sets that I typically go for are things that can also be displayed, as well as sort of work with a playset. I love me a good play feature or a vehicle or something like that I can sort of like play around with as I build it. Usually with vehicles, I just sort of like yeet them across the table, and then with locations, like with Santa's Visit, I liked making Santa sort of like slide down the chimney. It's quite fun. It reminds me a lot of being a kid, and I just enjoy it, okay? But overall, I mean, I display everything in cabinets or in display cases or just like put my minifigures on display. That's personally what I'm looking for. And in saying that, the Marvel mechs usually do a really good job. I mean, they all look really awesome, but I just feel like I'm getting the same thing over and over and over again. It's like how I feel about iPhones these days. I mean, like, there's not too many differences between them, and I feel like you really don't need another one unless your other one is like broken or dying or just like super old, or maybe there's a new feature that comes out that you feel like you're really gonna use. Essentially, it's just the same thing repackaged or in a different font, basically. So to sum it up, I really do think that LEGO Marvel has a mech problem, but what exactly does that mean? Well, to put it quite frankly, I feel like we're getting too much of a good thing. That thing is just not good anymore. It's sort of becoming stale, it's becoming repetitive, and I just feel like I personally, and I hope that a lot of other Marvel fans, want more variety with their sets. The Daily Bugle, for instance, is my favorite Marvel set of all time, one of my favorite sets, if not my favorite set of all time, and it felt very fresh, very unique. We'd never have a Lego skyscraper before. It was exciting, it was interesting, and just overall, it was a great set. Was the build process of the windows tedious? Yes, but I don't really mind. Then we had things like the Hogwarts icons and the buildable figures, and while they're definitely not my favorite sets, I still think that they look really cool, and they were very different and fresh and something we hadn't gotten before with Lego Harry Potter, as much as I hate to admit it because I really wanted a modular Gringotts to go along with Diagon Alley because I love that set. It was still nice to have something new. And I feel like Marvel, when it originally started, and probably I'd say up until around 2018, had a lot of different variety. There was different types of locations, there was different vehicles, there was a lot of different figures. We were also sort of in like the height of like the comic book character creation, releasing type of things. We got She-Hulk, we got Red She-Hulk, we got Captain Marvel, we got Miss Marvel, we got Justin Hammer in an Iron Man suit. I mean, it was exciting times. It was great. There was so much variety, and now we're just getting mechs constantly. So what? There's a ton of mechs, but how many mechs are too many mechs? Well, for me personally, I feel like too many mechs is somewhat subjective. If there's a mech in a show or a movie, okay, I understand that sort of being a thing. But for me, I feel like an average sort of point is like 3 or 4. If you've gone over 3 or 4 in 1 year, That's a lot. Because I feel like unlike a vehicle or a location, I feel like it's not quite a staple thing. I mean, I look out my window and I don't see mechs stomping around all the time. So I guess from a realism point of view, there's that, but then at the same time, a lot of these movies and like, I mean, superheroes don't exist in the real world. Unfortunately now, otherwise I'd be chilling with Spider-Man right now. I never really hear anyone mention mechs. It's never, you know what I'd really love? Another huge Hulkbuster armor, because you know, that first one just beautiful. I can't wait for a second one. Yet that's exactly what's rumored, so I mean, I'm sure there's an audience for it, but I just feel like it's getting a lot. So much so, I wanted to talk about every single Lego Marvel mech that we've ever gotten. So just a little history into Lego Marvel. So the theme started originally in April of 2012 under the brand new sort of superheroes. We had DC, which was the main front runner, that coming out in January. In some places as well, it came out in December of 2011. And that I feel like was the real hero thing, because at the time, the Avengers hadn't yet come out. So when April rolled around and the Avengers movie hit theaters, Lego Marvel started off strong, featuring a wide range of sets from the Avengers movie, including Quinjets, Hulk's helicarrier Breakout, that awesome sort of like shield truck, Loki's Cosmic Cute Escape. I always had like a little soft spot for that one. Even Cap's avenging sort of cycle thing. That way you could get all 6 of the Avengers by purchasing the sets, and it was a great deal. There was also an X-Men set featuring Wolverine, Magneto, and ye old Deadpool, which is just iconic and very expensive now. And then to tie it all off, we got a Spider-Man set as well, and it was pretty strong, and honestly, that was mostly it for a while. I mean, we always seem to have gotten word locations and vehicles, and I think it was a pretty solid thing to do. Now, keeping in mind at the time too, Marvel was taking a lot more grounded approach. I mean, with the success of The Dark Knight, that impacted a lot of movie making styles, especially The Amazing Spider-Man, for instance, taking a more realistic approach. You watch back any of those really early Marvel movies from 2008 to I feel like around about 2014, they all feel very grounded in realism, and it was really, really cool. And then 2014 hit and we got Avengers Age of Ultron. Hey Google, what year did Avengers Age of Ultron come out?
In Australia, Avengers Age of Ultron was released on the 23rd of April 2015.
Correction, in 2015, Age of Ultron blessed our screens. I mean, maybe not so much blessed these days, but it was an exciting time. It was the second Avengers movie, and the first one had broke box office records at the time, being the 3rd highest grossing movie of all time. And one thing that we saw in the trailer and one thing that appeared in the Lego sets was the first ever Lego Marvel mech, which ironically and funnily enough as well was my first ever Lego Marvel set, mainly because I wanted the Hulk. Scarlet Witch looked really cool, Iron Man was in it too, and I just really liked the Hulkbuster. It was a relatively good size, it was nice and compact, wasn't quite to scale. I mean, he's significantly taller than the Hulk, but for, you know, honestly, it's gone downhill since then, to be honest. But you had space to put Iron Man in, you could sit him at the top, you had the little arc reactor, you had a lot of mobility, and it was really easy to pose around, and overall just a really solid set. And I'm pretty sure as well, this was a really big seller. I love this thing, and to this day, this is my favorite Hulkbuster. I've really got nothing bad to say about it, except it started a trend of just too much. It's getting too much now. Now that mech was the only one from that year, with our next one appearing in 2016, and actually a Spider-Man set, which is Doc Ock's tentacle mech thingy, which like, why? Like, I know that Doc Ock has like tentacle arms and all that, but I feel like he's more menacing with like just his arms than like a giant mech to like punch people with. I don't know if that's just me. Anyway, it had some cool minifigures, but overall the mech didn't look great. And from around 2015 to 2018, things were pretty steady. I mean, we also got the set with Lola, which had a mech, but I mean, most people were buying it for Lola and Coulson, considering like the whole Age of S.H.I.E.L.D. storyline back when people still cared about that. That includes myself here. And then 2018 hit, and slowly the snowball started to down spiral, and it just kept going and going and going and going until we get to 2022 here. Now in 2018, of course, we had the regular Infinity War Hulkbuster, a part of the Infinity War line where you could collect a stone. You also then had the first edition UCS style sort of like Hulkbuster, which honestly I didn't really hear too much about. I didn't know it existed at the time. I sort of saw a few pictures of it and I was like, oh, I mean, okay, that's like kind of cool. To me, it didn't really look quite right in its proportions. For some reason, I don't really know anyone who owns it. I don't really know what the general consensus of this set is, but I just look at it and I'm like, okay. Then as we go along, you'll see what I mean by like we started to down spiral. But because there was the Spider-Mech versus Venom. We also had the War Machine Buster in those beautiful line of Endgame sets, which couldn't really spoil anything. And while he's technically not a mech, he's got a very sort of like mech style build to him, and that's Molten Man from Far From Home. Technically, like I said, not a mech, but look at him, he's got all of the same sort of like components, the joints, like the whole style and look, so I'm gonna count him as a mech. There was also the Spider-Jet versus Venom mech, can't forget that one. The good old 2020 video game style Hulk Buster that looks like he's got a pancake head. I love that one, shout out to him. And then, of course, remember Lego blessed us with those lines of mini mechs in order to just get cool figures and for kids to play around with, despite these mechs not really looking quite right and not making much sense because their like proportions are all out of whack, but had some good printed pieces. Can't forget them. That gives us another 3 mechs per year ever since 2020. Yay. And then later on in the year, we also got Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, which again, really like that Doc Ock one, but we've already got a repeat for Spider-Man. And then 2022 comes around and we have the mechs that got cancelled, but then uncancelled, but then cancelled again. And now they're backlisted on Shop at Home and hopefully coming out on April 1st, which is Wolverine, Black Panther, and oh look, another Iron Man mech because we didn't have enough of them to begin with. Ah dear. Admittedly though, I really like the look of the Iron Man suit, and we're all in consensus here that we're just like buying the Wolverine mech for Wolverine, right? Like those claws where it look a tiny bit too long, like they should be katana swords. Is anyone actually buying it for the mech? Probably, but they're not watching this video because they're too young. Anyway. And just when you thought the list was done, no, it continues. Now this one's technically not a mech set, but I did want to add him to sort of like the honorable mentions, and that is the Igor mech that featured in the Iron Man Hall of Armor. I know a lot of people would love to buy duplicates of the Hall of Armor and stack them on top of each other. I personally could never be bothered. I just parted it out because I didn't want multiples of this guy. Like who wants him? I do love his little feet though. He's built really well, but I just don't care. So at this point, we've already got 5 mechs. We've got 3 of the individual ones that dual pack with Spider-Man and Doc Ock, but no, lo and behold, the summer wave rolls around and we're getting more, starting off with the Ironmonger Mayhem, which is slightly oversized. He looks quite massive and doesn't really fit the scale of the movie. Incredibly detailed though, like, pretty solid set, honestly. I really enjoy it, but I mean, it's another mech. I'm starting to feel like I'm drowning at this point. Wait, you feel like you're drowning? Yeah, I mean, of course, we're up to 6 mechs. Of course I feel like I'm drowning in mechs. Oh, that's a shame, because What If also brought us the Hydra Stomper, which looks pretty similar, honestly, to the Ironmonger Mayhem. He also probably blends into the green screen. Wait, how about this? Can you see him now? Again, built really well, was a fun time. He's a bit more in scale. He's even got like little elbow joints, which is pretty cool. They're on a hinge, not a ball joint. But again, we're up to 7 mechs now. So you'd hope that with the second What If set, you know, we'd get something different. Well, you're wrong. We're getting another mech. And this one is Tony Stark's Sicarian mech. And because of the way that the What If show ended out turning out, we didn't even get to see him in this season. He's gonna be in season 2. I will give it to this set though, because he can turn into a car. You can take these wheels off and sort of like rework it. So, I mean, that's pretty cool, but another mech, at least he looks cool. He does look different. He doesn't look the same as the other 2. So that's fun, because I feel like when we're making this many mechs, things start to get repetitive. This one's number 8. And then lastly, to round off the year, we had a 9th one, which is similar to Molten Man in the fact that it's a buildable character, and it's Orishim, who my version's head's fallen off, because the piece is broken, but just pretend that he looks like that. I might need to go on place a bricklink order in a second. So he's different. Again, he's taller. His kneecaps don't quite move as much. He's got these weird Technic feet, and at least he's a character, not quite a mech. So I'll give him points for that. I would much rather something like this than like the 2 What If mechs. Because I feel like at this point, they're all looking a tiny bit too similar. Like these ones have both got bionicle headpieces. I mean, they're both really chunky and really big. It just feels like we're getting the same thing repeated over and over again. It's sort of like how Star Wars makes a Luke's land speeder in what feels like every 2 years or so, but like they're all releasing in the same year, just with different paint jobs. It literally feels like the definition of like same word, different font. Now, I'm very aware that even just by listing off this list, you may think that this is probably still just a me problem. So I wanted to reach out and sort of get a better consensus. So I asked you guys on my community tab what your favorite types of sets were. But instead of telling you the evidence, I might as well just show you. So here, bring back the green screen. So as you can see here, we have the question that I asked on the community tab, which is basically just like, what is your favorite type of set? Now, I'm very aware that this can change for a lot of different themes, but I did want to try and be as broad as possible and not really just like narrow it down to Marvel, because I feel like it's getting a bit too specific there, and I'm interested to see what LEGO collectors in general just sort of like doing. So for me personally, for Star Wars and things like that, vehicles are always my number one go-to, except for usually large UCS sets. Like I would much rather like a location than like a giant ship. In saying that, I really, really want the AT-AT. As much as I love locations for Star Wars, there's just something about having those ships that is really exciting, because I feel like that's more of like a key part of Star Wars. Whereas for Harry Potter, I am definitely more of a locations person. I mean, there's not really too many vehicles. Don't get me wrong though, I do absolutely love the night bus. I've got all of them besides that like mini polybag thing. They're amazing. But I'm definitely leaning more towards location. Same goes for Marvel. I really like myself a location. I mean, I feel like we sort of get too many Spider-Man vehicles and Spider-Man mechs, that just the idea of Spider-Man having something like that annoys me. For him specifically, just locations. Same with just Marvel as a whole, like I do love me a good Quinjet. I don't really care too much for motorcycles. Some of the cars can look really cool as well, but besides like the Hulkbuster, I really don't need or really look to find more mechs unless it's sort of like a character type build. Just like the Molten Man Battle or Innerisham Shadow. So that's my personal thoughts. Here's everyone else's personal thoughts. So as you can see here, the biggest one is locations. Everyone seems to really like locations, whether that be like a playset type of thing, a dollhouse type of thing. A lot of people in the comments mentioned modulars, which I thought was really interesting, especially given the fact that we got the Daily Bugle this year. I feel like that directly ties into Marvel. Then second up, we had vehicles. A lot of people mentioned like Star Wars ships and things like the Ghostbusters Ecto-1 and like the Batman Tumbler and just like really iconic cars and things like that. Which again, that's something I definitely agree with my personal collecting style. I love having like iconic minifigure scale vehicles. Like that's one of my favorite things. I just love sort of like compact, smaller stuff. Like I don't want a giant Batmobile, as cool as they look. And then lastly, right at the bottom, you'll see that we have mechs with a solid 2% of votes. And the most enthusiastic person about the mechs in the comment section that I found was Pink Ice, who just absolutely loves mechs, really enjoys them, which was interesting because they said even though we have sort of too many of them, which I completely agree with, we've got too many of them, but at least someone's buying them, which definitely answers my question, because I really sort of question how many people are buying these. I mean, often I see a lot of mechs on shelves as well, so that's not faring too good for them. So if this is the case, okay, well, what could be done about it in order to sort of appeal to kids and adults alike? Well, I'm gonna put on my thinking cap, and by thinking cap, I mean thinking gaming blue light glasses. And I'm gonna think for a second here, because to me, some of my favorite sets include the Ultimate Bridge Battle from Spider-Man. I love that. It's a location. It had a ton of play features. It worked really well as a display piece as well as a play set. It was a lot of fun. You had a mix of a vehicle as well, because there was that like tiny taxi and like tiny little police scooter thing that went meow. And then there was also a bunch of really cool minifigures. Another really great set I love is the Sanctum Sanctorum from the Infinity War wave, which was this beautiful play set that sort of reminded me of a modular, that it could like open up into a dollhouse or be enclosed. There wasn't too many play features in that though. It was definitely sort of like a building, but still a lot of fun. Also things like the Benatar. Don't get me wrong, I love the giant version, but it'd be awesome to get a sort of another play scale Quinjet type of thing. I feel like we haven't had one in like a bit. Like the last one I can really think of was like the Avengers Endgame one, which I personally wasn't a huge fan of. I mean, I guess it looked kind of cool, but I'd love to see another version like that. Even another shield truck like the one from 2012, that would be really cool. And then only leave the mechs to things that are like key to movies. Like I feel like Innerisham Shadow, big win for that one there. Molten Man, again, really big win for that one. Playset Hulkbusters, yes, please, I don't want a big one. Please, no. Even the playset ones that are bigger than this one, like the more scale accurate and the more size accurate they are, the better. I feel like I want them to be in scale. I want them to fit on my display. I don't want to have a giant statue sort of figuring up there. Oh my gosh, that reminds me, I forgot another mech. I forgot there's also this Iron Man one, which is just a buildable Iron Man weird mech figure. Who asked for this? I mean, maybe the kids did. I mean, you look at the lifestyle images and they're like zooming him around. He could be fun to pose around, but like he looks awkward. I just feel like there was so much more we could have done. Now, as much as I love these what if mechs, and I mean, I think they're cool. They're very well built. They're great sets. I do highly recommend them, but I wish this was something else. I really do. It would have been so cool to see the ship from the Star-Lord T'Challa episode, or even just a Quinjet from the Zombies episode, or even just like a giant buildable Hope Van Dyne zombie. That would be awesome. Evil Doctor Strange as well. Like, I feel like What If had a lot of potential that we didn't have to do 2 mechs. Like, this is the same way, but we got essentially the same set, just slightly different. It would have been so cool to have something else, anything else. Give me one of the mechs. Give me the Sicarian one. Ditch the Hydra Stomper and just let's move on. For what they are, they're awesome, but it's just too much. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that we can vote with our wallets, which is clearly not something that I have done or that I have utilized, as I own a lot of these sets besides those like small kitty ones. And like, we all know that I'm buying that Wolverine mech for Wolverine, and just the fact that, you know, the mech had to be changed and cancelled and all of that. That's why I'm buying him. I don't care about the mech. I'm just here for the figure, and I don't want to buy him on Bricklink, so I'm just going to buy the set. And I have no doubt in my mind that that Wolverine mech is going to sell absolutely incredible, but I really hope that LEGO sees that success and isn't just like, wow, people really love these mechs, let's make more. Surely there's like another sort of like small set that you could like just throw a minifigure in. I don't know, I've really drawn a blank on this. I've got no ideas. I just really hope that we've capped out at our 4 mechs for this year, and we're just gonna leave it at like those 3 and Iron Man. I really hope that there's not like some sort of like Black Panther one or Infinity Saga one or even Thor Love and Thunder. I really just want something else. The Garganta Showdown earlier from this year, that was amazing. That's so cool. It's so unique. It was so fresh and different. I mean, it's sort of got the characteristics of a mech, but it's more of like a buildable creature, and it was just cool and fresh and fun, and I loved it. And I really want some more individuality, more uniqueness, and more just interesting things from Marvel. I really would like to see some more variety, so I'm really interested to see what happens in the wave this year, and let's just hope that there's no more mechs, please. Though speaking of mechs though, I'd be really interested to know which is your favorite. I mean, mine is definitely that sort of original Hulkbuster, the first OG Marvel mech. He is just amazing to me. I mean, he looks a bit chunky and a bit gappy, like as a lot of things were back in 2015, but I love the scale of him. I think he's fantastic. So let me know what your favorite mech is, and what do you guys think about Marvel producing so many Marvel mechs? Like, what is something that you would really want to see Marvel create? What are your favorite types of Marvel sets? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below. And until the next Marvel mech releases, guys, I'll see you later.